title, The War on Talent of Avoiding the Brain Drain Within Your Firm. Well, obviously I could only talk about the experience within my firm. I'm a Brethertonian for 20 years. Sally has only been a Brethertonian for a year.
Yeah.
And when she starts speaking, you'll realise that you don't have to adjust any hearing aids or anything like that. It's a Scottish accent. But Sally's had a background in law firm management and held various positions. But for Brethertons, recruiting a COO was, a very big deal. And it was interesting that William, actually, in the previous session, had talked about hiring smart people. Well, I'm a great believer in doing what my dad always said. My dad always said, surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, and you hire smart people and do what they say, just don't tell them what to do. So that's kind of part of my mantra. Over the next hour or so, that's the agenda. That's what was published in your programs, and that's what we were given as agenda items to talk about. I'll be doing kind of about the first couple or so, and then hand you over to Sally, who's going to do some far more interesting stuff than I've got to witter on about. And then, as I say, it's out to the bar. We've heard a lot about talent and finding the right calibre of candidates. And it's interesting enough, the war on talent as a phrase. I think that lawyers were quite proud of the fact that we can actually bandy about the phrase, the war on talent, and think we're quite hip and trendy. Although actually when I started researching this was a phrase that was coined 20 years ago, practically. So, it's probably only just affecting the legal profession, which is why we're using the phrase. And finding the right calibre of candidates is a problem. I don't know. We have offices in Bicester, Rugby, Banbury. Bicester, you will have heard of, Bicester Village. Yes, there's more to it than that, actually. Banbury, Junction 11, the M40, and Rugby, on the outskirts of Coventry, Birmingham way. And as I tell all my partners and tell my heads of department, we mustn't believe our own propaganda. These are not the legal hubs of the universe, even though they're the legal hubs of our universe. But so finding right people is a challenge. I don't know how many of you have read the LexisNexis Bellwether, it's got an extra L in there, report. I got an email about it in the beginning of May, so that's when I picked up on it. And interestingly there, it identified what are the top 10 challenges. And then if you actually look, continuing demands of compliance was number one. And I think that's just because the solicitors were all a bit anal and worried about compliance, worried about the SRA. Well, the bloke from the SRA today was quite friendly, wasn't he? He's my friend now, so I'm not worried about compliance anymore. Then we get into attracting new clients. Well, if you're going to attract new clients, you've got to have good people are going to be involved in that. That's quite important. Attracting and retaining good lawyers, yeah, that's people related. Increased cost consciousness. So we've got to make sure that we engage with our clients because customers are cost conscious, so that's people related as well. Keeping up to date with changes in the law. Well, I've only interviewed one person when I asked the question, how do you keep up to date with the law? And she answered the Daily Mail. That was a very short interview. But anyway, so yeah, we expect them to keep up to date with the law, but that is a given. That is an honest truth, I tell you. Keeping work practices up to date, increased demand for fixed fees, increase in commoditisation. We're worried about unqualified lawyers, being able to secure and renew PI cover, okay, and then clients relying on the internet. A lot of those are people related when it actually boils down to the calibre of people that you've got, or maybe it's because you're worried about things because of the calibre of the people that you've got. When I drilled into this report, as a priority, attracting and retaining good lawyers, 37% of law firms surveyed had implemented something to attract or retain good lawyers. 39% had planning to attract or retain good lawyers, and 24% are doing bugger all. And that quite worried me, really. So it's a priority. 37% are going to do something, some are planning to do something, so I'll just wait. Taking on non-fee earners to help businesses develop efficiencies, 29% have implemented that. That's great. I've got some non-lawyers into the business. I hate the phrase non-lawyers. It's like saying nurses are non-doctors. But anyway, need to come up as a professional. I think we need to come up with something there. But managers say, 29% have implemented that, 15% have planning to implement something. And then it came back to taking on more staff. 40% of the firm surveys have implemented that, recruited some more people. 29% are planning to do that. And the Bellwether report says that though there has been investment in processes, technologies to increase efficiency, we've heard all about that today, there's been investment, less than a third have taken on non-fee earners to help in this area, which means actually what some people are doing is investing in processes in technology and then thinking it's a good idea to make the lawyers do that. And what we believe in Brethertons is that we have a bit of a mantra: lawyers doing the law, support staff doing the support. So if you've got people who train to be lawyers, I want to be a lawyer all the time, they don't necessarily want to do some of the other stuff that we as a profession, as businesses, might want them to do. And I think that does cause problems with firms. So it comes down to, what is it you're recruiting? What is the calibre of the people? What skills do you want? What is the attitude? And attitude, I think, is very important. If I ever go and talk to a firm that might want to talk about merger or us taking them over or whatever, it's all about culture. It's got to be about culture first. Does it fit? Do they fit with what you're doing? And what is the priority of the recruit? Because it's not necessarily always about money. If you think, what is the priority of somebody wanting to join your firm for a training contract? It's they want a training contract. Then, you know, the fact that you might be offering them £5,000 less than somewhere else, they might think, well, do you know what, I'm going to take it because I've got my training contract, that's what I want. And then I think, how flexible are you regarding flexible working? Really, really important. I think I read a survey that said by 2020, we're going to have more women on the roll than men. So why aren't organisations thinking about flexible working? Why aren't they embracing that? They massively should be. Or have you ever heard yourself, well, what one of your colleagues might say to what anybody with a pulse would do? And, I have heard people say that from time to time. It's just anything with a pulse, anybody with a pulse. And then you probably get what you deserve if that's your philosophy on recruiting. We talked about technology. Rupert was going on about websites. Interesting there. For the millennials people, you think about what you're going to be doing on the way home on the train. You're going to be looking at stuff on your mobile. You're going to be looking at stuff on your phone or your tablet. And 65% of emails are read on a mobile. 73% of LinkedIn searches are done on a mobile. And 84% of smartphone users surf the net on their phones while watching TV. So if your website is not, and specifically the careers pages of your website are not optimized for mobile, you're not being seen. It was probably about 18 months ago, we really beat up the people supplying our technology so that our career pages were mobile friendly, because that's where people are starting to look. Sally on the way down here on a train, so the train got delayed, chatting to somebody about he was going for a job interview. Actually, what do you do? I'm a business analyst. Fantastic. He's going to have a look at our roles on his phone. So we're secretly hoping he doesn't get the job that he's going for in London, because he might want to work for us in Banbury. Anyway, there you go. You get into direct recruitment approaches against the traditional agency, and I think, you've really got to look at the fact that if you're going to say, yeah, I'm going to do it all direct, what is your brand? And is it attractive? And do people want to come and work for you? If you look at, I'm sure you will do, you look at the websites of the firms in your areas, and you will, I'm sure all your websites are lovely. They might not be, but I'm sure, let's pretend they are. But you will see your competitors that they are dire. They are dire. And is that really going to attract a young person or any person to think, yeah, I want to go and I want to work for that outfit? So try and make your websites look different. Ours does look different. We get a lot of comments about ours, but it will have a shelf life. We launched it about a year ago, and we're probably in 2-3 years' time start thinking, okay, we've got to revamp it. And I think it's very important that as a brand and as a firm, what do you stand for? And do your staff know what you stand for? Because your brand is about what your staff say when you're not in the room. And you can say, yeah, we're a wonderful firm dating back 200 years, yada, 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 yada. And the staff walk out and think, actually, I hate them. I wouldn't, I hate my job here. And that's your brand. And so you've got to make sure that, your staff become advocates for your business. I spoke to recruitment agents about this, about recruitment initiatives, and he was saying that it is very common when somebody hands their notice in to buy them back. And it was interesting, he was telling me that is happening in usually 50% of the cases. And I was surprised by that as a stat, where people are handing in their notice and then saying, I'm left, and then 50% of the time they're getting bought back by the firm who will address the issues and keep them on board. And that was interesting, especially as we've got one senior role where she's had the offer pack. And the other thing, there's an interesting article on LinkedIn. 2 months into a new job, people think that their job sucks. And that is an interesting time to approach them if you think you missed out on someone. We did miss out on someone to work in as a cashier, and really, really great pedigree. And oh no, it was a bit far out for her. But anyway, we missed out, and she accepted another job. And I've actually diarised up 2 months' time, get in touch with her, because her new role, she might not like it, and fingers crossed. I also think you're doing this directly, you've got to spend and commit time to doing it. Again, recruitment agent told me that one of his clients, and he did tell me the name, but I don't think, I'm not going to tell you, just simply because I'd rather not, he doesn't know. I don't want to get the agent into trouble. That this CEO of a top 100 firm spends 50 to 60% of his time recruiting staff. And he says, this is one of my primary roles in this business. And again, that staggered me, because I don't spend 50, 60% of my time recruiting staff. And I'm thinking, actually, if this top 100 firm are doing it, maybe I need to be doing more. And I would not underestimate how time-consuming dealing with direct approaches can be. It really is. I think I've got another bullet point come up on another slide, but I used to run ads in the back of the Gazette, tall, dark, handsome, looking for, but saying, hello, we're Brethertons, give us a ring. And I got lots of calls, and my profile describes me as a frog kisser, and I was kissing lots of frogs, and they stayed frogs. That some of them were pretty ugly. There was one candidate I remember sent in their CV, and the CV was so bad, I picked up the phone, and I rang them. Hello, Bob, it's Shaun Jardine, and you could hear, someone's wrong. Someone has wrong. I said, Bob, don't get your hopes up. I said, I am ringing you to say, your CV is so bad, it infuriates me, and I'm telling you now, stop doing it, because no one will ever ring again. But it does take a lot of time. And if you're going to respond to these, and you must respond to them, even to let them down gently, you've got to respond, because if you don't respond, what does that say about your brand? Then you've got to do that stuff. And you've got to try and recruit ahead of the curve. So start thinking, about what you need in 2 years' time. So we're starting a recruitment drive for a commercial trainee. So I know that in my commercial sector, we will be wanting a newly qualified lawyer in 2 years' time. And if any of you have been trying to recruit a couple of years ago thinking, I wonder if there's any newly qualified commercial property lawyers out there. Of course there's bloody not, because no one was training them then. So you've got to think ahead of the curve and recruit your own. This was a really interesting point. Again, came from the recruitment agency, who said, when you're onboarding people, what do you do once you've sent out the offer pack? Now, I'm thinking that this new role that we're recruiting for, she's on 4 months' notice. And I was thinking, we don't do anything. And he was telling me that some of the bigger firms and some of the small firms are really good about keeping in touch in that 4-month period. Now, we actually produce every week Good News Fridays, in-house newsletter, rah, 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 this is what's going on, so-and-so's been made a partner, this is his cake bake charity, whatever it might be. And I thought, well, as a bare minimum, I ought to get my HR team now to start sending out our newsletter to this person who's sitting at home waiting to join Brethertons. And that really was a bit of an eye-opener for me, because I do nothing. and I think I need to do more. But he was saying that lots of firms will be sending handwritten notes, keeping in touch with these people, updates in the law. If you're doing an area of law and this person's coming to join you at your business, that area of law, and you come across something, saw this thought of you, keep in touch with them. And I thought that was an absolutely great point. You've got to keep on top of social media. We've heard a lot about that already. Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. We actually had, I'm probably thinking, it's probably about a year ago now, we had something that came up on, a mum started a conversation on Mumsnet. And we picked up on it very, very quickly because actually she wasn't terribly complimentary about us. Don't mind sharing that with you. But actually, one of my key client manager who was dealing with that contacted her, explained, etc. And she said, oh, yeah, fine. And they're lovely, really. Now, if we weren't keeping on top of that stuff, the last thing you want is that actually escalating, getting out of control. So you must keep on top of Facebook, etc., etc. LinkedIn, I'm a great fan of LinkedIn. My HR team have access to my LinkedIn account to send in-mails to people saying we're recruiting. We will look at LinkedIn profiles. If it says they're open to career opportunities, we will send messages. If they're not open to career opportunities, we won't. We do respect that part of LinkedIn. And interestingly enough, recipients like the fact that the email has come from me. I don't necessarily know they're being sent, if I'm honest, but they're well drafted, unlike the ones that I do send myself. I will get response for people saying, "Oh, thanks for thinking me, not interested at the moment," or "Yes, I am interested. Could you ask the HR people to get in touch with me?" So we do a lot about that. And there's some interesting LinkedIn stats there about, in 2013, the majority of users were passive. In 2014, 15% of them were described as being super passive. But actually, people who are on LinkedIn aren't necessarily on it looking for jobs, but they're looking for content to improve their jobs and skills. And I will write blogs, I will write posts. My HR people will prod me, say, "Can you write a blog for our website, please? Can it be job related, about getting a training contract," or whatever it might be, and then post that on LinkedIn, and then it links back to our careers page. And so that kind of stuff works well. And interestingly enough, I recruited a data protection lawyer on the back of an article that had been put out onto LinkedIn, where he started a conversation with me about it. We went back and forth over a couple of days, and then it was great. He came to see me. So that was fantastic. Hands up, who has heard of Glassdoor? All right, that's actually more than I thought you were going to get. Actually, it's probably about 10. That was really interesting because Glassdoor, for the rest of you, is basically a website that ranks gives feedback about employers. And it was really, really interesting. And I had a couple of hours, and I went through Glassdoor by putting the names of your firms in. And that was a very interesting. And there's one or two really nervous now. Oh my God! But the thing about Glassdoor, it can give feedback about the firm. It can give feedback about the CEO, and it can actually have conversations about these are the questions you're going to get asked at interview. And my daughter went for an interview with an advertising agency recently, and every question that is on the Glassdoor came up. And they thought she was some kind of genius because they actually weren't monitoring their own Glassdoor page. Glassdoor, 95% of candidates say that the reviews from other employees, so this is kind of peer-to-peer review kind of thing, can influence their decision. So it's important that you look at this. It might be important that you create your own page. And 85% of candidates are attracted to companies with a reputation for great career opportunities. Now, I'll put you out of your misery. I couldn't find your firms on Glassdoor. Although, interestingly enough, so some hands were raised, may have heard of it. Maybe I didn't have enough time. But I did actually get some quotes about solicitors' firms. Now, you can go on there, Glassdoor solicitors, and it'll just come up. And if that is your firm, awful place, ridiculously low wage, management are useless, rude and arrogant, you might be thinking these are not the words that you want associated with your firm. Too late for these firms that are there already. But also, are people going to likely to want to join you? Now, I would encourage you to create your own Glassdoor entries, post your jobs on there, etc., and monitor it. And we've had a Glassdoor account probably for about 18 months, and we hadn't had any review until the beginning of May. So there's one, and it was the lady from Sally from Quality Solicitors. She gone? Because I knew Quality Solicitors chap because was it Tony? Who was sitting here last session? Frank, Quality Solicitors. I saw Frank earlier on. This is not Frank's Quality Solicitors. It's oh, there you go.
I was going to keep a low
profile. But actually, this is about Quality Solicitors itself. So there we go. Easy to get in. Alternative route for some law graduates. It was an early stage of QS development. Organisation immature. Management was rather poor. I hear the place has received new revamped management, and I believe it's a step in the right direction. So, okay, it's all right. It's 3 out of 5. It's given it there. That's mine. And look, hey. And the interesting is, I've been monitoring this since it came up, and there we go. It's 3rd of May, and that I worked out who it was, because it is anonymous, but actually she ticked the box marketing manager, and I don't have loads of those, so anyway. But it's a marketing manager who had gone. And, she was saying nice things, which is nice. I clearly didn't, create much of an impression with her because she didn't approve the CEO button or anything like that. But I'm delighted at least that what we've got up there is positive. So that's fine. And when we have new starters joining the business, we encourage them to think about Glassdoor, and if they want to post something, please do so. Because I'd rather have my people posting positive things rather than disgruntled people buggering off and posting negative things. So I think that's quite interesting. If you're going to work with an agent, you've got to be selective. And use a low number of agents and really get them to understand your business and build a relationship with them. There's a couple of you old enough in the audience to remember, anyone remember the agency Hughes Castell? No? Just me? Oh, really? Am I that old? Anyway, lovely agency. When I was a newly qualified solicitor, so that would have been about 1986, I think. And Hughes Castell was a recruitment agency owned by a lady called Helen Castell, lovely lady, sadly passed away. And I was trawling in the back of the Gazette thinking, right, I'm a litigator, I want that job, I want a job. And in the back, Hughes Castell advertising a litigation job that she hadn't told me about. And I rang up Helen, I was really furious. Helen, why haven't you put me forward for this job? And she said, Shaun, this is not the right firm for you. And it was because actually they would have prayers throughout the various times of the day. And she said, this isn't for you. And you know what? She was 100% right. But that was an example of an agent who knew me, knew her client, and thought, I'm not going to waste that client's time by sending them an inappropriate candidate, and I'm not going to waste the candidate's time by sending him to an inappropriate firm. So, that has long stuck with me, that story. And I think if you are going to use people, you make them come, understand your firm, understand your culture and what it is you're about. I think you can, you've got to make them work for you. The last thing you want is just, copy and pasting CVs. That is another thing that drives me mad, when agencies will copy and paste client CVs to get the formatting all wrong, and then when you find a CV with a typo in it, you say, I'm really disappointed with your CV, Mr. Bloggins. And he said, well, it didn't have a typo when I sent it into the agency. So they're actually getting something that is quite good, bastardising it and then sending it out, so it drives me mad. I think if you're using agency, fine, you can haggle over prices, but you've got to be fair with them, because otherwise they're not going to punt candidates to you if you're going to do that. And you've got to have honesty both with the recruiter and with the candidate, and make sure that there's no point saying something you're dramatically not. There's no point in me saying that we're absolutely brilliant in the tech area and admiralty law. We've got a canal near the office, but I don't think that counts. But so, just make sure that you're fair about your propaganda, really. We run a talent bank. So we are always asking, if we encourage people to apply even if we haven't got a job, so that we will say, well, you're a great wills, trust and probate lawyer. We haven't got a vacancy now, but if we have got one, come in and have a chat. And then if a vacancy arrives, we'll let you know, we'll be in touch. That's quite handy. We have a talent bank of where we've got about, any one time, we may have got 5 or 6 people that we know we would recruit as and when a vacancy comes up, and they know that too. We also, when people start with us, I have a coffee with all of the new starters, so lump them all together, and one of the questions I want them to do is tell me who's really good at their firm, the firm they've just left. Who are the ones that I should be targeting? And also tell me who are the ones that are bloody nightmares. Because I've got an anti-talent bank as well. There's people in organisations I do not want. So, we have that data. I think another way of recruiting people is to do work experience at undergraduate level. We've been doing this for years and years and years. We've got a group of 8 students in. We'll set them a project. This year it's going to be about processes, I gather. So you get to look at young talent, and at the end of it you might say, well, as and when your degree is finished, if you want to come back, please come back. And we have recruited, I probably think, about 4 people that way. We've had a good look at them, they've had a good look at us, and that makes that easier. I think, again, LinkedIn, that's fine, but beware, or certainly when you look at when people starting and leaving, etc., it can adversely affect your attrition rates if you've got lots of people going all at the same time. I mentioned there about press releases. When you're doing a press release to say, ta-da, this person's joined, if after 6, 7, 8, 9 months' time they're not on your website, that shows that you're getting your recruitment wrong. And I did have a discussion with another firm about that when I went to meet with them for a chat, and I was able to point out to them that I think they must have had a problem with the recruitment because 5 senior hires that they'd had weren't on their website anymore. And that was interesting, and that shows that, well, there's obviously problems within that organisation. I think your staff can be a great source of recruitment, but only if they like your brand. If they don't like where they're working, they're not going to get their mates to come and work there as well and share the misery that might be your organisation. And also picking up the phone. If you know someone that you like and you know them well enough to think, do you know what, pick up the phone and ask them. I've actually stood behind someone whilst getting a sandwich and said, when are you going to come and work for me? And had a really good conversation with the chap about that. Local initiatives, there's a scheme where in Nottingham, you've got a couple of law firms, a couple of barristers' chambers, and the university are actually trying to keep law graduates in Nottingham. So they've got together, put together some initiatives about keeping candidates local. And that's something that I'm quite interested in doing. Our local law society, BB&O, Berks, Bucks and Oxen, will actually circulate emails about vacancies and things like that. It's cheap as chip. Well, it's free. So, that might be something you want to do. I mentioned ads in the Gazette. You've got to have a strong stomach if you want to go down that route. As I say, there's some horrors out there, but you will get lots of responses. Local colleges. We actually approached the local college to set up, the college is always saying, we want to do what employers want. Employers should tell us what they want. And we're lobbying our local college to set up a licensed conveyancers course. We want more property lawyers, so can they set one of those up? And they're quite receptive to that. They haven't managed to find a tutor yet. Anyone want a job in Banbury College, let me know. But that's where we've got a demand amongst law firms in the area to say, yeah, we've got people who we will send to college. We will pay the fees for them to go to college and do the evening courses, etc., but they've got to find a tutor. I think job boards are important on the internet, etc., but it's how do you stand out on those? How do you differentiate yourself? Well, it comes back to your brand. What is it like? If it's boring, you're not going to. And think about doing things about thought leadership. And a couple of years ago, I spoke at a conference, not this one, another one, and I dressed as a penguin. And I did a presentation about My Iceberg is Melting, all about change. John Cotter, Change Management, written a brilliant book. It's perfect for lawyers because it's short, it's large font, it's colour pictures of penguins, and they can read it in an hour. And no word of a lie, I got 20 copies of it knocking around the office, and we have Penguin of the Week, and I thought, well, one of my staff is here. I think it may have been Penguin of the Week. And it was that, I did that, a couple of years ago, and when I meet people, they still talk about, I either heard you at the conference or I've seen you do something about thought leadership dressed as a penguin. And that helps because that helps the brand, because we like to think that we want to try and change the way that people think about lawyers. And we like to think the best compliment you can pay anyone at Brethertons is when they say, you don't sound like a lawyer. And I think, thank God for that, because that's what, when people do think about lawyers, it's not usually in a terribly good way. So that's all I've got to say about this at the moment. I'll hand you over to Sally, who's going to talk about far more interesting parts about the brain game and the cohesive cultures.
Well, one will certainly try. So to try and cover off the other areas of the agenda, talking about cohesive teams and career planning, diversity and inclusion, and driving the strategy forward. Shaun made reference to my accent in terms of the brain drain, and clearly Scotland are not doing a very good job because half of us are down here. So I thought we'd just start, because I appreciate that all that stands between you and a glass of wine now is me. So I've probably got about 15 minutes to do these slides. So we thought we'd just start with a catchphrase. See if you can guess what this is. Say what you see. Can't do it in an Irish accent. Say what you see. Really?
Who's going to have a guess? I couldn't get it.
Human capital flight. Human capital flight. Seriously? Nobody? Whatever. I'll move it on then. I'll move it on. So what I'm going to talk about is the practicalities at Brethertons of how and what we're doing to avoid the human capital flight. I'm going to talk a little bit about our business transformation model and really about the how, because sometimes what I feel, in my experience, it's really great to have a vision. It's really great to be ambitious about wanting to retain and attract and motivate and keep your staff, and that's fantastic. But what's often missing is the how. How on earth are we going to do this, and how are we going to achieve it? And we've done a lot of work at Brethertons, particularly over the last year, in terms of how are we going to do this, because we see it as a very important agenda item. And so we'll talk a little bit about structure and strategy and governance and how we make decisions at Brethertons, and how new recruits and old recruits can continue to be part of that decision-making process. And at the heart of all of this is a people development framework. So how we're going to do this is we've come up with the onion model. And the onion model is really important to avoiding the brain drain, to keep our talent at Brethertons. And it stands for Operational Network for Evolving Organisational Needs. Because at Brethertons, we recognise that we have evolved over the last 200 and odd years. But have we ever really taken time to stop and say, why are we evolving this way? And where are we going from here? And we've done that. And it's been quite a painful last year, because Shaun mentioned earlier about believing our own propaganda. And we're stopping doing that. We have stopped doing that. We've held a mirror up to ourselves and we've said, okay, how are we going to take all our experience and history and move forward to the next generation of Brethertons? So how we're going to do that is the onion model, and we've trademarked that, so no, you can't steal it. And what it is about, it's about layers of connected change. And that's really important, because just picking out one of those things in one of the boxes and fixing it isn't enough. Picking out 2 or 3 of those things in the boxes isn't enough. So we've spent a lot of time looking at the operating rhythm of Brethertons, looking down and just looking at from A to B in terms of a client being interested in our legal services to a client exiting and potentially coming back in. What happens during that? What is that operating rhythm like? So the onion model is yes, peeling back the layers. Yes, it's a bit painful and may make us cry at times, but it's really important to make sure that when we to make a change over here, we understand the impact it may have on other areas of our business. So the layers of change, the layers of connected change are very much about the principle that Shaun alluded to earlier. It's about lawyers doing law and support providing support, and how we bring the two halves of our business together to really value the talent that exists in both sides of the business and bring them together to drive us forward. So when we start looking at the outer layers, we're looking at our legal services teams and how we interact with our clients. And I'm not going to talk today about our client development programme, which constitutes some of the many layers of our onion. And we start to look at the inner layers in terms of our processes, and we talked about legal process mapping, and look at the operating rhythm that comes from a due diligence or a deep dive into our processes. And also at the heart of our onion model is our support services and our people development framework, and what we're doing about that to really make sure that our machine hums. So looking at structure and strategy, it's quite important when you look at this model to get organisational effectiveness and to get strategic effectiveness and to keep people in the business. It's really important that they understand the vision and they understand the strategy. Now, Brethertons is a gold IIP status firm, which is absolutely fantastic, and potentially being the doer Scots that I am, the first thing I did when I looked at that IIP report was I went straight to the development areas. And it was pretty clear to me that one of the things that we're potentially not as good at as we should be was linking the strategy to what people were doing on the ground. And a big reason for people leaving your firm is because they don't understand the value they have or the contribution they're making day in, day out. And some of this that you'll see today is certainly not rocket science, absolutely not, but bringing it together, it suddenly makes sense. Now, I can say we've just finished a series of 13 roadshows, and we'll show some feedback at the end of this in terms of what people are saying about what we're doing at Brethertons. So it is about structure and strategy. It's about getting all of our arrows going in the same direction. And we know if all of our arrows and all of our people are going in the same direction, then we've got a much better chance of hitting our target and reaching our vision. So the model is about uniting both those sides of the business. And the structure aspect of it and the restructure that will be happening and has started to happen at Brethertons is not just about moving warm bodies or really looking at our sectors or our practice areas or our practice groups. We've given a lot of thought to what we're trying to achieve with a restructure. And what we're trying to achieve is leadership, getting the right leadership roles in place and making those leadership roles accountable. And I'll talk a little bit about how we're going to do that. It's also about making sure we build strong management layers. One of the biggest reasons for people leaving your firm is their line manager, their immediate line manager. It's also about playing to people's strengths. We know we have played lawyers and our support staff out of their strengths. And why do we continue to do that? Why do we continue to invest in lawyers to be project managers, HR managers, finance managers? Is that the lawyer's role? And we've been asking some of these questions. So yes, it's about accountability, it's about ownership, but it's also about clarity, making it very, very clear in our structure where you fit and how you can progress through that structure and how you can communicate to others within that structure. And the communication and the cohesion of our new structure is really quite important in terms of how we build our corporate community. We know, just looking at what millennials want, being part of that community is really important. So we currently work across 3 geographical locations, and how do we create that sense of cohesion and community across our 3 offices? So our structure and our restructure, which is looking at sectors and practice area and putting the right people at the heads of those areas, is about making sure we deliver good management to our people. It's also about synergies, making sure it's very easy in an organisation that has evolved over 250 years to not think about the synergies that exist between our teams and between our people. And so creating this new structure allows us to target the synergies, which ultimately links to our client service programme, making sure that when a client comes into contact with Brethertons, that we can passport that client through our services. We talk about cross-selling or upselling in a way that makes sense to the client and not necessarily makes sense to us. It's very easy to put on your website your sectors and your services, but my biggest thing is coming to a law firm website, do I see myself there? And these are some of the things that we're doing right now. Our processes, absolutely, legal process mapping. We are looking at our operating rhythm to make sure that it flows well for our clients, but that it also flows well for us. Communication, a part of our structure now, is making sure that we can communicate down throughout our structure and across the firm. We're very aware that our executive committee, our management teams are sitting in our ivory tower of the boardroom and making decisions about the business that may never get to the right people in the firm. We know, because we've done a survey recently in terms of the number of emails that go out and how many people read those emails, and sending an email and getting it off your desk does not mean that any action has taken place. It's very easy to think, I've dealt with all those emails, that has been done. It hasn't. All you've done is send an email. So by changing our structure and by looking at our structure, we're developing our people within that structure to help all the arrows go in the same direction, and making sure that the strategy that we develop and the vision that we create for Brethertons is meaningful on the ground, and that it's meaningful to every individual in our firm. And of course, that it's profitable. It has to be a profitable model so that we can invest back in the business and we can grow and continue to expand. And part of that decision making is around our governance. We have completely overhauled our governance structure, and this is just a little bit of it here in terms of our board and the purpose of the board and the purpose of the many committees and the many meetings that we have. And again, we've been fairly brutal looking at who attends these meetings, and we know from asking our staff that, what's the purpose of that? I've just spent 3 or 4 hours or half a day in a meeting that really didn't drive the firm forward. It's been a waste of my time. So again, if you want to keep your staff, think about what you're asking them to do every single day, and think about the purpose and the meaning that it has for them, but also for the business. We're looking at all of our meetings now. They all have a terms of reference in terms of the purpose of that meeting. We are mapping out our meeting schedule so people can understand where they can contribute to the debate and where they can help facilitate that decision making. And where the meetings they have to attend to and why, and what they can expect from those meetings and what action it will drive. And that's really important when we look at governance in terms of the decisions that we're making. Not just about the external environment and how we can react quickly to that, but how we can start to respond better to internal stimuli and understand what's happening on the ground and respond to what people want. In this model, we build success into the DNA, because if we're setting the vision at partnership board and we're creating the plans at the executive committee and operational management levels, then we start to build that into people's objectives. Again, it's not rocket science, but if you do that, then you've got a much better chance of getting your arrows in the same direction and actually meeting your strategy. And at the core of all of this is our people development framework. We know we have tried to put that square peg in the round hole. We know we haven't played to people's strengths, so we have stopped doing that. And we've stopped doing that by giving our staff choice. And again, giving people choice is the best thing you can offer them in life and as part of their career. And we've done that by looking at career pathway. And again, we know from the new generation coming into work from Bretherton what is important to them. Indeed, I asked that chap on the train on the way in what was important to him about the job interview he was going to. What did he really want to get out of that? And he said to me, the second bullet point, about a career pathway, Sally, it's really important to me that I can see my future in any job I go into. So we talk about them coming in and wanting to leave after a couple of years, potentially. But if we give them choice, and if we point out and make their path very clear and visible, you've got a much better chance of retaining them in your business and retaining that knowledge and that corporate memory. So we've done that at Brethertons. We're giving our people a choice. We're giving our lawyers a choice. Part of our new structure and our new strategy is about stripping out layers of admin that are diversionary or distract our lawyers from the business that we're in. And we're in the business of providing legal services to our clients. It's very easy to forget what we do. So our goal now is stripping out those layers of admin, those things that stop us providing that high quality service for our customer base across our regional market. So we're developing career pathways, and we're giving our lawyers a choice. At a certain point in their career, they can opt to go down a management development path or a technical specialist path. And we start to play to their strengths. And already we've had people saying, fantastic, I've never wanted to be a manager, I've never wanted to do that, I want to be a technical specialist. I went into the law because I love this area of the law and I want to practice that forever. Fantastic, we can do that now. And we can do that for both our legal services and for our support services. We give people a choice. So we play to strengths, and playing to people's strengths gives them a chance to stay within your organisation because they feel valued and they feel that they're invested in. At the heart of our people development framework are new role profiles. We have restructured, we've put new leadership roles in place, and they all have a brand new role profile, and soon all of our staff will have a brand new role profile that is, at the heart of that are 5 key result areas. Those 5 key result areas link absolutely back to our strategy. So anyone looking at any of those role profiles can fully understand what it means for them in terms of their responsibilities and their objectives and how it actually aligns to and feeds our strategy. They feel much more motivated, they feel much more valued, they feel much more included in terms of what we're trying to achieve. And part of that is about talking about the business impact, the impact they can have on the organisation and how their thoughts and opinions are valued. And if we talk about inclusion and diversity, we know that those are key aspects of any policy, making sure that we respect the individual and the individual's thoughts. So by stripping out layers of admin, we actually free up space for innovation. And we're quite excited about that. So the 5 key result areas, again, it's about visibility, it's about transparency. We've mapped out routes for people to get to partnership because we know lawyers particularly get to a certain point in their career, and where is partnership in that for them? It's potentially invisible, it's dead man's shoes, they don't see a route there. We're mapping that out, we're making it very clear, we're linking it to remuneration and reward. And we're saying to people, do this, you'll be rewarded, and this is how you can get to partnership, and indeed what partnership means here at Brethertons. Yes, it's linked to competencies and behaviours. Yes, it's linked to our culture and our values, absolutely. So we start to develop well-rounded, holistic individuals that can really see how they contribute to our future and our development and be a key part of that. We're linking their personal and professional development to the role profiles. Some of those will be mandatory, some of those will be optional, and some will be exceptional. So people that do exceed and want to exceed in our firm can do so, and they'll be rewarded for that. And we're completely overhauling our whole reward and benefit scheme because we've recognised that some of our targets and some of the bonus schemes could not be influenced by about 50%, possibly more, of our staff. So we have gone very, very visible and upfront to all of our staff at Brethertons and said, we're changing it because you matter to us. Every single day you come into this firm, you matter to us. And if you meet and exceed your objectives, then we will make sure you're rewarded for that. And that's a very important, very popular message, I'm sure you can imagine, but that's what we're doing. So in terms of our brain drain plans, we do think some of the structure and the strategy work in our people development framework and our onion model, our layers of connected change, does start to quench the thirst for the millennial instant gratification. We're thinking about putting our rewards twice a year, possibly more. We have a whole portfolio of other bonuses and rewards that they can access. We will reward for performance and for high performance, and we'll make sure that they understand the business impact they have every single day. Opening up the career pathways and being much more transparent about that really engages and motivates our people. We think it's very fair, we think it's very open, it addresses any disparity in our previous model. And it starts to respect individual identity and uniqueness. And as I said, it allows people to be true to themselves and what they do best every single day. The new strategy and the new structure is collaborative, it connects people, it builds that sense of corporate cohesion, which is so important when you want your staff and your skills and your intelligence to stay within your own organisation. So that's what we're doing.
Indeed. So I think it comes back to you've got to have a powerful brand and you've got to have a compelling vision that people want to buy into. When Sally joined a year ago, I said, hold a mirror up to the firm. I've been at Brethertons 20 years. I only know what I've kind of self-taught myself doing, etc., etc., etc. But we've grown rapidly, and we have grown rapidly. But look at what we're doing, why we're doing, and how we can make it better. And I'll be brutally honest, if anybody needs any indication of why you want to get non-lawyer managers into your business, then just think about the presentation you've heard from Sally, because that kind of stuff would not have happened with me leading the way, doing it like that. It was beyond my skill set to deliver what Sally has designed. And I know it's been delivered, she's delivered it in previous places, and I just cannot wait to actually, carry on the journey that we've started. It will get people to want to join you. The career pathways are very, very important. We had one of my most senior lawyers who I can charge out the most money he's head of a department, came to see me afterwards saying, "Thank God for that, Shaun. I hate managing people. I don't want to do it anymore." And an associate in his team who is very organised, is into knowledge management, is into knowledge sharing, is saying, "I want to manage the team." And so we're going to have a partner being managed by an associate, because they're both the right shaped pegs in the right shaped holes, and they are blissfully happy about that as an outcome. And how good is that? Because the guy who's doing managing is no good at it anyway, and I can spend him doing more time doing what he likes doing, which is the law. And so absolutely fantastic. Obviously, you've got to look after your good staff, help those who can be helped, but be prepared to exit those who can't, because you just, if people are not prepared to get on the bus and come with you, even after you've encouraged them to do so, then you'll need to get them off. And it is very, very important that you plug your vacancies at every opportunity, be it on a rail journey or whatever, because you don't know where your next valuable employee is coming from. The guy that I mentioned, who's this really great lawyer, got him off LinkedIn. I sent him a direct message. So that's how I got hold of him. But don't take it from Sally and I. This is some of the feedback. It's a bit small, actually. I think, it's a bit small here. It's a bit bigger there. When we gave the feedback, or when we did the road shows to the staff, this is the feedback that came back from, and we've got a variety there from senior lawyers down to rising young stars. And it was just great that we got that, enjoyed, importantly, understood your presentation. Quite often in the past, I don't mind admitting these things go right over my head, but today I actually felt totally engaged and took in what was being presented. And these were unsolicited, coming back from our staff. So they're enthusiastic about it. At management level, we're very enthusiastic about it. And for that is, we think it's going to be just a brilliant, brilliant recipe. So remember, you've got to plug your vacancies at every opportunity. You're committing a cardinal sin if you don't do that. So I just talked to you about, we're recruiting a head of finance at the moment, and I know there's a couple of finance people in the room. So there we are. It's available on LinkedIn if you want to do that. We are retaining an agency, so you can get in touch with them. They're going to do the first cut, so, but anyway, I just thought I would do that for you. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you very much.